So, picture this. You inherit your grandfather's ranch. 40 acres of beautiful land that's been in your family for 3 generations. You're emotional, you're grateful, and you're ready to honor his legacy. And then, you get a letter in the mail demanding $120,000. Yeah, you heard that right. $120,000. From an HOA you didn't even know existed. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how I inherited more than just land. I inherited a war. And let me tell you, the HOA had no idea who they were messing with. But let's start at the beginning, because this story, it's a wild one. 3 months ago I got the call. The one you never want to get. My grandfather, Henry, had passed away peacefully in his sleep at 87 years old. He was my hero, honestly. A tough-as-nails rancher who'd worked that land his entire life, raised cattle, grew hay, and lived by a simple code: hard work, honesty, and never back down from what's right. At the funeral, his lawyer, Tom, pulled me aside. "Alex, your grandfather left the ranch to you. All 40 acres, the house, the equipment, everything. He wanted you to have it." I was stunned. I mean, I knew Grandpa loved me, but this was his life's work. I'd spent summers there as a kid, learning to ride horses, mend fences, and appreciate the simple life. But I lived in the city now, had a corporate job, a small apartment. Could I really run a ranch? Tom handed me a thick envelope. "Everything you need is in here. Deed, will, property documents." He was very clear about his wishes. He wanted the land to stay in the family. I took it with shaking hands. I'll do my best to honor that." "He knew you would," Tom said with a sad smile. The next week I drove out to the ranch. 5 hours from the city, into the countryside where the air smells like pine and grass, where you can actually see the stars at night. As I pulled up the long gravel driveway, memories flooded back. Grandpa teaching me to fish in the creek, helping him feed the cattle, sitting on the porch while he told stories about the old days. The house was exactly as I remembered it, a bit worn but solid. The land stretched out in every direction, rolling hills and pastures. It was perfect. I spent that first week just being there, going through Grandpa's things, crying more than I'd like to admit, and trying to figure out what I was going to do. Keep it? Sell it? Could I manage it remotely? Then, the letter arrived. It was in an official-looking envelope, addressed to the owner of 4527 Prairie Wind Road. I opened it, expecting maybe a condolence card from a neighbor or something. Instead, I got this. "Dear property owner, this letter serves as formal notice that the property located at 4527 Prairie Wind Road is subject to Prairie Wind Ranch Estates Homeowners Association covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Our records indicate significant outstanding violations and unpaid fees dating back 7 years. Total amount due, including late fees and legal costs, $119,872. Payment is due within 30 days or legal action will be commenced." I read it 3 times. Then I sat down. Then I read it again. Oh, what HOA? This was a ranch. A working ranch. There were no cookie-cutter houses, no community pools, no manicured lawns. Just land. I immediately called Tom. "Tom, I just got a letter from something called Prairie Wind Ranch Estates HOA demanding $120,000. What the hell is this?" There was a long pause. Oh no. I was afraid of this. "Afraid of what? Tom, what's going on?" He sighed heavily. "About 8 years ago, a developer bought up the land surrounding your grandfather's ranch. They created this planned community called Prairie Wind Ranch Estates. Big houses, 5-acre lots, the whole luxury rural living thing. They established an HOA to manage it." "Okay, but Grandpa's ranch wasn't part of that development." "No, it wasn't. But the developer tried to claim that your grandfather's property should be included in the HOA boundaries because it was surrounded by the development. Your grandfather fought it. Refused to sign anything, refused to pay any fees, refused to acknowledge their authority. He had lawyers send cease and desist letters. The HOA backed off for a while, but apparently they've been accumulating violations and fees anyway." My blood was starting to boil. "They've been charging him for an HOA he never agreed to join?" "It appears so. And now that he's passed, they probably see you as an easier target. Someone who might just pay to make it go away." I felt something click inside me. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was Grandpa's stubborn DNA kicking in. They picked the wrong target, Tom. They picked the wrong damn target. 2 days later, I was sitting in the office of the Prairie Wind Ranch Estates HOA, facing three people who looked like they'd walked out of a luxury real estate catalog. There was Preston, the HOA president, in his 50s with perfectly styled silver hair and a tan that screamed, "I play golf on Wednesdays." Next to him was Diane, the vice president, wearing designer ranch wear that had definitely never seen actual ranch work. And finally Kyle, their attorney, looking smug in an expensive suit. Preston spoke first, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Mr. Carter, is it? First, let us offer our condolences on your grandfather's passing. Henry was quite a character." "He was a good man," I said flatly. "I'm sure he was. Now you've received our letter regarding the outstanding fees and violations." "I did. And I'm here to tell you that my grandfather's property is not and has never been part of your HOA. Diane leaned forward. "Well, that's where you're mistaken. When the Prairie Wind development was established, all properties within the designated boundaries became subject to our covenants." I pulled out a folder. "Really? Because I have my grandfather's deed here. It predates your development by 60 years. I also have correspondence from his attorney to your HOA 8 years ago explicitly stating that he did not consent to join, did not sign any agreements, and demanded you stop claiming authority over his property." Kyle, the attorney, barely glanced at the documents. "Your grandfather's refusal to cooperate doesn't negate the legal structure we established. The county approved our boundaries, which include your property. Based on what? Did my grandfather sign anything? Agree to anything?" Preston's smile was condescending. "Mr. Carter, you seem like a reasonable young man. Your grandfather was set in his ways. He didn't understand how modern community development works. We're offering you a chance to resolve this amicably. Pay the outstanding fees, agree to comply with our covenants going forward, and we can all move on." I felt that anger rising again. "Let me make sure I understand this. You want me to pay $120,000 for fees and violations that my grandfather never agreed to, for an HOA he explicitly rejected, and then continue paying you monthly for the privilege of living on land my family has owned for 3 generations? Diane's voice took on an edge. "The alternative is litigation. And litigation is expensive, Mr. Carter. Much more expensive than simply paying what's owed." "What's owed?" I repeated slowly. "Tell me something. What are these violations you've been tracking?" Kyle consulted a tablet. "Failure to maintain approved landscaping standards, unauthorized structures, livestock violations, failure to submit architectural review applications for repairs, unpaid monthly assessments, unpaid special assessments for community improvements." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Livestock violations? This is a working cattle ranch. Our covenants allow for a maximum of 2 horses per property for personal recreational use. Cattle are prohibited." I actually laughed. It just came out. "You're telling me that a cattle ranch that's existed since 1962 is in violation because it has cattle?" Preston's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Mr. Carter, the past is the past. The current reality is that your property exists within a planned community with standards. Those standards exist to protect property values for all residents. I'm not a resident of your community. I'm the owner of a private ranch that your development was built around. That's a matter of legal interpretation," Kyle said smoothly. "And I can assure you our interpretation will prevail in court. We have resources, Mr. Carter. Significant resources." "Do you?" There it was. The threat. The assumption that I'd fold because they had money and lawyers. I stood up. "I guess we'll find out. You'll be hearing from my attorney." As I walked out, Preston called after me, "You have 30 days, Mr. Carter. After that, we file." I drove straight back to the city and called Tom. Then I called every property rights attorney I could find. By the end of the week, I had representation. A guy named Marcus Chin who specialized in HOA disputes and property rights cases. Our first meeting, he looked over everything. Wow. This is egregious. They literally tried to annex your property into their HOA without your grandfather's consent. That's not how any of this works. Can they do this? Can they actually make these claims?" Marcus shook his head. "Legally? No. But here's the thing, Alex. They're counting on you not fighting. Most people, when faced with a 6-figure demand and the threat of litigation, they either pay or they sell the property. The HOA then offers to graciously waive the fees if you sell to a buyer they approve. Usually someone connected to the HOA board. That's extortion. It's a pattern we've seen before. But here's the good news. You have a strong case. Your grandfather's property predates the HOA, he never signed their covenants, and they have no legal authority over you. The bad news? This is going to take time and it's going to cost money. How much? Legal fees? Could be $20,000-$30,000 to fight this properly. Maybe more if they drag it out. I thought about it. Thought about Grandpa. Thought about what he would do. Do it. Whatever it takes. That ranch has been in my family for 3 generations. I'm not letting some wannabe land baron steal it. Marcus grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The next 6 weeks were a blur. Marcus filed our response, arguing that the HOA had no jurisdiction over my property. The HOA's lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to establish their authority. We had a preliminary hearing where a judge listened to both sides. The HOA's attorney Kyle was smooth. Talked about community standards, property values, the importance of uniform enforcement. Made it sound like I was the bad guy for not wanting to be part of their community. Then Marcus stood up. And he brought receipts. Your Honor, the plaintiff is attempting to force my client into an association he never joined, his grandfather explicitly rejected, and for which there is no legal basis. The HOA's own documents show they established boundaries that included my client's property without ever obtaining consent. That's not community building. That's a land grab. He pulled out documents. Letters from Grandpa's attorney. The original deed. Survey maps showing that the ranch existed decades before the development. County records showing no consent was ever filed. Furthermore, Marcus continued, the violations they're claiming? They're charging him for running a cattle ranch. On a cattle ranch that predates their existence. They're charging him for unauthorized structures that have been on the property since the 1970s. This isn't about standards, Your Honor. This is about an HOA trying to eliminate a property they see as non-conforming so they can force a sale and bring in a buyer who'll build one of their McMansions. The judge looked at the HOA's attorney. Counselor, did Mr. Carter's grandfather ever sign your covenants? Kyle hesitated. No, Your Honor, but... Did he ever agree in writing to join your association? No, but the county approved boundaries. I don't care what boundaries you drew on a map. Unless this property owner consented, you have no authority. I'm dismissing this case with prejudice. The HOA is ordered to cease and desist from any further claims against this property. Furthermore, I'm awarding attorney's fees to the defendant. You don't get to force people into contracts they never signed. The gavel came down. It was over. I sat there stunned. Marcus was grinning. Behind us, I could hear Preston and Diane whispering furiously to Kyle. Outside the courthouse, Marcus shook my hand. Congratulations. You just won your ranch. I can't believe it. Believe it? And here's the best part. They have to pay your legal fees. Every penny. I drove back to the ranch that evening. Pulled up that gravel driveway as the sun was setting, painting the hills orange and gold. I sat on the porch where Grandpa used to sit and I just breathed. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Heard the news. Henry would be proud. Yeah, he would be. But the story doesn't quite end there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a reporter at the local newspaper. Apparently, word had gotten out about the case. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. The HOA had been targeting 3 other properties around the development, trying the same tactic. Now, with my case setting precedent, those property owners were fighting back too. And here's the kicker. The county started investigating how the HOA got approval for boundaries that included non-consenting properties. Someone in the planning office had apparently rubber-stamped their application without proper verification. That person was now under review. Preston, Diane, and Kyle? They resigned from the HOA board within a month. The remaining residents, many of whom had been intimidated by the old board's aggressive tactics, voted in a new board that actually focused on, normal HOA stuff. Maintaining common areas. Organizing community events. Not trying to annex neighboring ranches. As for me, I made a decision. I kept the ranch. Took a remote work arrangement with my company, moved into Grandpa's house and started learning how to actually run the place. It's hard work. Really hard work. But every morning when I wake up and see those hills, when I feed the cattle and mend the fences, I feel connected to something bigger than myself. I feel connected to Grandpa, to my family's legacy, to the land. And I learned something important through all this. HOAs can serve a purpose. When they're run properly, they help maintain communities and protect everyone's interests. But when they're run by people drunk on power, people who see themselves as little dictators rather than public servants, they become something else entirely. They become bullies. And bullies count on you being too scared, too tired, or too broke to fight back. My grandfather taught me that some things are worth fighting for. Land, legacy, family, principle. And sometimes the fight isn't about winning. It's about refusing to be pushed around. It's about standing up and saying, no, not today, not ever. So here's what I want you to take away from this story. If you're dealing with an HOA or any organization that's overstepping, know your rights. Document everything. Don't be afraid to get legal help. And most importantly, don't let them intimidate you into giving up something that's rightfully yours. That $120,000 bill? The HOA ended up paying me more than that in attorney's fees and court costs. The property they tried to steal? It's mine, free and clear, with a court order saying they can never make claims against it again. And every evening, I sit on that porch where Grandpa used to sit and I raise a glass to him. We did it, old man. We kept the ranch. And we didn't back down. Because that's what you do when someone picks a fight with the wrong owner. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've dealt with HOA overreach or property rights issues, you're not alone. Stand your ground, know your rights, and don't let anyone tell you that their made-up rules override your legal ownership. This is Alex, signing off from the ranch.